Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Dulta Doherty, and in this podcast series, I will be interviewing investors, advisors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, founders, directors, and recruiters who are based all over the world in how to set up, scale, and operate a world-class recruitment company. Today, I'm going to bring you to New York and what it's like to be Sam Harrison, who is the director of Elliott Brown, a recruitment company that specializes in technology and digital. He's been over there for a while. I recently went over to work with Salt and helped grow out their business. And he's had a great view on the growth of UK companies over there and has a really inside knowledge into what works for the American market and what you should adapt as a recruiter if you want to make that move over there and be successful. Hope you enjoyed this one, guys. And let me know if you do. And thank you so much for all the amazing reviews on iTunes that you've been giving it. Every 5-star makes such a difference. And to all the people who've been reaching out to me, thanking me for the podcast, it really means the world. So thank you all so much. And the thought that this is helping somebody set up their recruitment business or maybe bet on themselves to take an international move to fast track their career, it's really exciting. Anyway, over to Sam.
Hello.
Hello there, Sam. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, brilliant. We're having a fantastic summer here in the UK for once.
I know. I can't believe it. You guys have been very lucky this year. We had to wait a few extra months compared to usual for a New York summer, but it's pretty hot now.
Now, I normally give people a bit of an intro beforehand, but could you jump into how it all began for you getting into recruitment?
Yeah, absolutely. I've listened to a couple of your podcasts, and it's a pretty familiar message. In that I basically fell straight into it. I moved to London when I was about 19 years old, and I'd actually been a DJing around Europe and around the UK, and kind of followed my dream and ended up in London. And needless to say, it wasn't the most fruitful career for me, and I didn't become the next Tiesto. So I had to get a job, applied to some online, and ended up falling into recruitment like most of us.
What year was that in?
Wow, that was 2009.
Oh, lovely time to start, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect time.
So what was that like, starting in the recession, not knowing what the good times are like?
Yeah, so to be honest, I didn't really know any different, so it was kind of fine. You know, you heard the words, but as far as I was concerned, it was a new job and everything was exciting. So I kind of just cracked on. I jumped straight into the contract market, and although there was a recession, you know, there was still a requirement for technology professionals. So yeah, it didn't really affect me, and I hadn't felt the good times before, so it was all new and fine.
And what was the approach then? Has it changed? Like when you look back now at what you're doing now, is it
Sure.
very different? Was it a bit more phone based or?
So yeah, it was pretty much all phone based. I think my manager at the time, a guy called Vas Constanti at Marcus Donald, was a very traditional recruiter, a brilliant recruiter, very traditional, very phone based. And yeah, I was taught the S3 way, as a lot of people were saying in recruitment. But it's a brilliant foundation for recruitment. But yeah, it was very traditional methods, a lot of phone based, a lot of calling. And a lot of mass mailing back in the day, which has changed a lot now.
And was there a particular vertical that you were going after, or was it just IT across the board, or what was it that you did there?
So yeah, at the time I was kind of cutting my teeth into engineering on PHP. So it's kind of the start of the open source market around that. And that was my niche skill set for at least the first 5 years of recruitment.
And you've got a bit of a technical brain, don't you?
Don't know how technical in my brain is. I would say I've got my mind is open to exploring kind of the technical principles of management and how companies are built up off the back of agile and lean, and using a DevOps culture. When it comes to actual technology, not so much.
And in those early days when you were getting into recruitment and you were taught aggressive phone sales,
Yeah.
in the S3 manner, how did you differentiate yourself?
So I guess it was just really kind of being laser focused on my niche, making sure I had, the exact right candidates. And, I think it still boils down to that today. No matter what you're doing in terms of client engagement, unless you can provide very good talent, I don't think the value's there. I think there's a very fine line between right now a lot of people who are very, very good at content creation and a very good marketing campaign for personal branding. But when it comes to, what we do, it's still fundamentally the same thing, and that is finding the best people and finding the best people jobs.
Yeah. And so you were there for over 3 years. Now, I was in my first recruitment job for 3 years as well.
Yeah.
And I remember speaking to somebody in the room. I think his name might have been Matthew Haynes. And he said, all recruiters should take a break every 2.5 to 3 years. And because there's a point that your mind needs to do something else. Did you find that you were so ingrained in doing the same thing every day that you needed to change, or what was the driver to go and look at something new?
So with regards to H&R Talent, that was another recruitment company. So actually what happened was me and the other top biller at Marcus Donald decided that we knew it all and we could go and do our own thing. Against all advice, my father was very successful in business, and he said, no, it's not the right time. You're too young. Just enjoy life, enjoy the kind of corporate life, and just keep doing what you're doing. But I had to. That was kind of my motive at the time. Had to go and do my own thing and learn for myself. So we started a business called H&R Talent, and yeah, it was two of us in an office.
Let me ask you a question here.
Sure.
What was your plan for it, and how far removed from what it became did that turn out to be?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the plan for it was hyper growth, and the excitement was there at the very start. I think the major lesson from that was the lack of advisory and infrastructure we had at our point in our career. I was 3 years in. Rebecca, my old business partner, was 6 years into her career, but ultimately all our experience and learnings had come from one company. And although we had an amazing time, I think where it got to was a lifestyle business, and I put that down to not surrounding ourselves with more advisory type people at an early stage in our careers, and we should have really thought about building out better infrastructure and some better support networks prior to starting the business.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and it definitely hits home to what me and Charlotte created.
Yeah.
In our business, and I think I would probably do it differently now, but now that we're in it, I have to try and evolve with it.
Absolutely.
It's a tremendous, for the thought of going back and working for somebody after you've done it for yourself. That's a tough day. I imagine that's a tough decision to come to. What was that like for you, going from running your own business, having highs and lows and that, to going to consult partners?
Yeah, it was an interesting transition. I think I was ready for it. Honestly, I think as I mentioned, around infrastructure and career development, I've always been pretty passionate about moving forward, but I've always kind of been pretty egoless in terms of the fact that I own my own business, but sometimes taking a step back to go much further forward is important. And I felt that actually honing on skills and getting some more experience, whether that's managing people, becoming a team lead of bigger teams, at that point in my career was more important and could take me further. I think where I felt some comfort at the time was I connected with Gary Goldsmith, who everyone obviously knows. And we, I remember sitting in the home house garden with him, drinking a few gin and tonics, and him sending a tweet out saying, "I'm sat with a great guy who's looking for a new job, just finished up at his own business." And a few people got in touch, and the confidence was high, really. And I think anyone that does know Gary.
Who is Gary for people who don't?
So Gary is ex-chairman of Computer Futures. I think he was one of the godfathers of contract recruitment, really. And yeah, he's a very successful guy, very very opinionated, which is sometimes rather interesting to watch, but I quite enjoy it. But I think at the time, he was for the people that do know him, he instills a lot of confidence in young recruiters all the way through to directors, and offers belief. And I think that's one thing that I've taken in my kind of role as a leader, is that that make it happen, and belief attitude is what drives people on. So he kind of instilled that back in me after the slight the slight downside of not running my own business anymore. So I just picked myself up and kind of cracked on, really.
And did you start as a team leader, or did you go right back in as just a builder?
So I started. It was a pretty quick transition into team lead after about 3 weeks. I think it was me and another guy called Lloyd Kramer, who was at the time a senior consultant on the full-time permanent team at Console. And I think we both transitioned pretty much at the same time into team leads, because there needed to be some balance on the digital team at Console Partners.
And tell me, did you find that intensity of going back to working in an office like that, was that tough to get back to the previous levels of activity? Because I know when you're working for yourself, I know you work hard, but sometimes it's not the same as if you're in an office full of energy.
No, and I think there was some changes to me, and it was a bit different culturally, but realistically, I think it didn't take too long to get back into the swing of things. I think I was pretty grateful for the energy and the environment, and the transition wasn't too long. But yeah, there were certainly some differences, but I think they were overcome pretty quickly, just with a bit of resilience and a bit of an open mind.
What was the next stage of your career from there?
Yeah, so I was kind of falling out of love with London, and I remember I used to either drive back into London after visiting home or get the train back, and the minute I'd see Paddington Station on the horizon, I'd get this I'd be exhilarated, and I'd be ready for the week ahead. And I think the last 2 or 3 times I've been coming back in on the train, I just didn't have the same passion, and I was kind of done with the rat race, and I was ready for a next thing and next change. And New York had always been
ready for the next rat race.
Yeah, ready. Yeah, although I'd say very, very different type of rat race over here. It's although it's known as the most crazy city in the world, I'd actually say in terms of rat race, I think London's a bit more intense. But yeah, I was kind of ready for the next step. And weirdly enough,
How did that transition happen?
Yeah, so I got messaged by Sarah Salisco over at Salt, just via LinkedIn, pretty casually.
Who is she, just for the?
So she's their head of internal recruitment.
Okay.
And she messaged me about an opportunity. They were opening up a New York office. Me and another guy called James Walsh, and we just hired two awesome New Yorkers, Christina and Lilac, who are a kind of creative recruitment duo. And they were going to, begin this New York office, and that's kind of what brought me in, really.
So, and did you begin, like a lot of companies, they tend to launch their work in London first, or Manchester, or wherever their HQ is, and then they work roles remotely, and then they get a serviced office, and then they get a proper office, and there seems to be that graduated process. Was it just, did that happen, or was it just straight over there?
No, not really. We were pretty much straight over. I think the point was the catalyst for the New York office was off the back of a couple of accounts that had already been developed at Salt. So the investment was there to make it happen straight away. So we didn't really need to kind of form the foundations. I think we put together pretty quickly a small team. I was over in Australia for a month and had a few phone interviews and kind of bit the bullet on a few people and made some pretty quick hires. So we were, we kind of just moved straight over and were cracking on rather than creating that that market from the UK. And I think that was a wise decision. I think sometimes, without people being here and experiencing the culture and understanding what a new city and a new way of recruitment is all about, I think that can be a challenge when it comes to fruition.
Walk us through those early days.
Sure. So yeah, we're in a tiny little WeWork office. So my entire career in the US has been in a WeWork, which I actually give a lot of thanks to our growth within our businesses. Salt was a 3-person office. We quickly hired some people and moved into a 6, then to an 8, then to a 16-person, then into a 25. So it was interesting growth, and it was very quick. And as I said, the flexibility of WeWork allowed us to do that. But it was pretty much heads down, everyone just back to it. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so a previous guest, Ken Harborn, said whenever he set up his business from a serviced office, that every time the coffee machine would go, he would go straight over to the coffee machine to see, is it a developer? Is it a business owner? Is it who is it? Were you able to pick up a lot of customers and candidates from being in there?
Yeah, I think we had maybe a slightly more creative approach than the coffee machine. We did some weird things. I think we had a few post-it note competitions where we'd stick, Pac-Man on our window, and all the other offices would start copying it. I don't know if you saw that on Google on one of the social media websites a few months ago, but there was lots of creative things that happened. It was good to join in and be part of those. I think we had a margarita cart, which we utilized and drove around the offices and basically got people margaritas, which they enjoyed, and then engaged with them that way. But yeah, I think, although we're in a service office and there's lots and lots of startups here, our growth has been elsewhere as well. We haven't just focused on utilizing the WeWork connections for our growth and of our client base and our candidates.
And I've heard lots of different things about different approaches to the American market.
Yeah.
And quite a lot are following a smash and grab approach, where it's very much get the candidate out to as many places as possible.
Yeah.
The clients don't really want to build a relationship. Is that the same in digital, or is the nature of digital a bit more personal?
No, I think the nature of digital and technology is a lot more personal, actually. I think a lot of our engagements have been much more relationship based, and I think that's down to the cultural difference, right? I think when people first move their business over to the US, I think they start on a very traditional sense, whereas I feel like if you take a step back and look at the way people are engaging with clients and candidates in other companies over here, that approach is probably pretty much redundant now. That there'll always be a requirement for the traditional ways of doing recruitment, but what we found in the past couple of years is that it's a lot more around social engagement and utilizing social selling, and a much more prosperous way of winning business and engaging long-term client relationships here is through utilizing social media and slightly out the box approaches, Q&As with clients, building on culture with clients, understanding really what client engagement is in the US is very different to how it is in the UK.
Can you jump into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in the US, it's all about brand perception, and I talk about perception a lot, and I talk about how client engagement is really down to it's a much deeper touchy-feely experience, I would call it, here than in the UK. And I think people really buy into to recruiters that have got much more deep level of influence and engagement with the communities, rather than just being good for talent. And you see that in you see that in client relationships where perhaps, you haven't worked with them for a period of time, and 3 to 6 months may have passed where you haven't sent them a candidate because it hasn't been the perfect person. If you re-engage with them off the back of a blog or some social media, the relationships pick up again very, very quickly. Whereas in the UK, if you don't perform, you kind of get chewed up and spit out a little bit quicker than you do over here.
Yeah, it's a very different recruitment culture, isn't it?
Yeah.
What type of stuff are you doing to be socially engaged?
Sure. So a lot of our work has been around blogging. One thing that we've been pretty proud of is our Passel, which we just launched this month. So Passel is basically a content management platform that allows our very laser focused niche recruiters to get the thoughts out of their head and share value based content with our clients and candidates very quickly. And then also, speaking engagements have been vital to us. We run several meetups over here in the US, and also writing on slightly better known technology blogs, for instance, Tech Beacon, DevOps.com, Forbes. The selection.
Sure. When you're hiring a recruiter and you bring them into your business.
Sure.
Are you looking for them to be able to write, to be able to do the social stuff? Is that really important? And if so, is that how you induct people as well? How does that whole process look like now, maybe compared to what it did when me and you were starting out?
Sure. So I guess there are some differences. I think open-mindedness is important. I think a lot of the people we meet are kind of used to the very traditional approach and maybe very, very successful at that. As long as people are open-minded to a new way of selling, I think social selling is vital for us as a business as it goes forward in terms of engagement with clients and candidates. And I think if people are not open-minded to that, I think that would be a challenge. But people that haven't done it before, I don't expect that many people have. And yeah, I think in terms of writing, the point of this system that we use is that it's a very, very simple, quick way of getting your thoughts out rather than having to sit there and think, what am I going to write, 300 words on? We've got a system that makes that much more simple and allows people to get content out in 10 to 15 minutes. And really, we then have a portfolio of blogs where, if someone goes to a client meeting and that the client or the candidate mentions they're interested in drones or AI or machine learning or whatever that might be, we can very quickly follow up on our meeting with some real value add around content, which comes from our minds rather than just sharing, another article.
It's a really interesting one. It took me. I think I've got a hint of dyslexia, so writing for me takes time.
Yeah.
So I probably got a little bit lazy whenever we were all able to do snappy stuff on LinkedIn to get lots of views.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to get around to doing the podcast, and now that's an hour of my day every day where I talk to somebody like you, and then we try and get it out there and add value. You mentioned do you have set times in the day when you get people to do that, or like is everybody in an ideal world, would everybody be running their day the same way, or how does that work from a management perspective?
No, and it's a conversation I have quite frequently with people, and I don't really believe that works. I think individuals should be working on whatever's most important for them at the time. As long as everyone's effective and executing, I'm pretty flexible when it comes to setting up your days, whether you're working in the office, in a meeting room, whether you want to be on the phone or email, whether you engage via blogs, that is really up to you as long as you're successful. And as long as you've got everything you need to do that. I've been building out here what I call the platform for success. For us, we hire a lot of entry-level people. And my one of the kind of values that's core to me is that anyone that joins this business out of university should have the most fantastic first year of their life, 2 years, 3 years, however long, that they join us and they're with us, hopefully longer. But their first career should be amazing. And building out this platform.
And let's be clear, this business isn't Salt. This is your...
No. So this is Elliott Brown International. And for me, building at that platform, I kind of looked into all aspects of what does make recruiters successful, and realistically, the consideration around the fact that everyone doing the same thing at the same time in the day was really helping anyone.
Which is very far away from your S3 upbringing, even though
absolutely, But then that was 8-9 years ago, and I think realistically, if we look at the speed in which culture and things have changed via technology, we have to appreciate that we're nowhere near that culture anymore, and I just don't think it works.
Let's look into that, because I think it's quite hard to say it doesn't work. If you look at all your competitors in New York,
sure,
I feel like that there's a lot of S3 clone companies that have come into the market. Have you seen people do well or not do well in the time that you've been there? Is there anything that you can identify?
Yeah, absolutely. I think how I've kind of read it, and and what I've been observing over here when UK companies have moved over and opened their doors in New York, is that bringing the UK culture to the New York market is good, right? And there's some absolute
define UK culture to the American market.
So I guess that kind of S3 mentality with and the leads and doing it in that more traditional kind of fashion.
Yeah,
it works, right? But I think long term. Oh, and also, sorry to add to that, the 360 full desk recruitment philosophy, it works, right? And it's been the fundamentals of recruitment in time, and the majority of businesses over there that have adopted that model have done fantastically well. I think what I've observed over here in the US is that works for a short time, but if you look at a lot of businesses that have moved over here, they've struggled to get past the kind of 15, 20 person size. The ambitions have been much more, but for me, the culture and the way businesses work here, and also the way people work here, is that you have to adopt a different culture and different mindset to the way you do recruitment. So when I say it doesn't work, it of course works, but I think when you want to scale and you want to grow to a larger size recruitment company in the US, you have to really look at not trying to bring the UK to the US entirely. I think we need to kind of have a hybrid model where we look at the best things about British recruitment, but also combine them with a brand new, completely different culture, and see which works best. There's some fundamental differences.
It's an interesting one, and I have some thoughts on this because I obviously come across quite a few.
Sure.
I think that America has more of a culture of independent recruiters, so like thousands and thousands of recruiters doing it from their bedroom.
Sure.
And a lot of the UK recruitment companies that are coming over and doing well in the 360 manner, they are stealing business off them.
Yeah.
They're not stealing business off the major American firms that
Correct.
have a 180 model, where from doing a contract model where you have experienced salespeople on the front end with relationships, and you have lots of resources working on the positions on the back end. And I always see people struggling to put a 360 contract recruiter in the US, because it's so hard to compete with Robert Half or Tech Systems or whoever that company is, because their infrastructure is really built for it. Yeah. But from working with smaller businesses or working on search-orientated businesses in a niche discipline, I think the 360 model really works. That's just me looking from the outside in.
Yeah, there will always be moments of genius, right? And there will always be fantastic recruiters that make it work. I think if you look at scaling a business and the level of engagement that some of the larger customers here require and expect in terms of size of delivery and volume, having one or two people on these larger accounts does not give them the volume that they require. And with some of the much larger companies over here in the US, you have to engage in a different type of model to what we're used to in the UK. And I think a lot of the agencies here that are developing their brands are not engaging with clients in that way. And with that, they're probably finding that they won't be able to scale as much because they're reliant on more spot business and that 360 recruitment mentality across the board, rather than having that kind of hybrid approach where you can have a delivery team as well as a 360 team, as well as a business development team. There can be different pieces to the pie. And I think not changing the business model from a UK business model is a little bit short-sighted, considering the difference in culture and the fact that we speak the same language is not the be-all and end-all.
Well, that's an excellent answer, and it's really interesting that you could have all those different pieces. And I suppose that's important when you're hiring Americans, because most of them are bred in doing sourcing or on the sales side, and it's so hard to find people who can do 360. Have you found that yourself in your time?
Yeah, and my simple answer to that is, have people doing what they're fantastic at, right? And if someone is amazing at delivery, that's absolutely great, and that's what they should be doing. If someone's brilliant at delivery and we're trying to force that kind of BD, success, everything's about BD down their throat, and that doesn't work for them. That to me just seems like a pretty bad idea, right? I'd rather have people playing to their strengths, and if that's how it works, then that's the motto we go with.
And tell me, what's your life like in New York? Are you living in an apartment?
Yeah, so I live in a village called in an area called Chelsea. It's on 21st Street and 8th, so right in the middle of Manhattan, with my wife, dog, and cat. And yeah, we have an amazing life. I go cycling every weekend in Central Park. It's amazing. I absolutely love it. It's an amazing culture of eating out a lot. It's a very fitness focused city, which surprises quite a lot of people. And it's a very, very positive place to live. It's not as much of a rush and as crazy as people anticipate. I think a lot of people come in on holiday and spend time in Times Square in Midtown, but when you start exploring the place, it's actually a very relaxed city. Maybe that's because I'm not relaxed, but it's for me. I find tranquility in chaos. But it's a fantastic place to live. It's warm for 6 months of the year, and it's brilliant.
And I know you've been in your current place for a little while. You were at Salt for a decent stint of time there. Did you see a lot of UK recruiters coming over in that time? And if so, what would your lessons learned be in terms of advising anybody who's thinking of making that move?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think it's my first piece of advice is, if you haven't been over here, come and spend some time over on whether that's a vacation, and get to know the place before you commit to it. I think I've met quite a few people that have come over here on a bit of a whim that haven't even traveled over and spent any time in the States. My second piece of advice would be, and I think we spoke about this quite a lot during this conversation, but don't expect a similar way of recruitment to the UK, and don't expect the same type of engagement as you would have in the UK. You need to come over here with a very, very open mind. I think a lot of people, when they come over, they come with a pretty closed mindset that I think it's a very stiff upper lip British approach of coming over and we're the best and we'll just get it done. You need to come over with an open mind, and you need to change for the culture here. We can't change an entire country which is pretty resilient to some change in some ways, and if you can come over with that and be ready to make some changes but take your career in an amazing direction, then it's probably the country for you, because in another way, the collaboration and the positive mindset of people over here allows you to really take your career to the next level, where there may be some restrictions in the UK.
And I'll jump into where people can take their careers, but
Sure.
the road isn't completely paved with gold. Let's be honest.
No,
There's a lot of work to be done, and if you're over for a jolly for a year, you're not going to make money, are you?
no, absolutely not. I think it's, it takes time to build out your networks and things, regardless of where you move. But I think, no, it's a very big change culturally, but also financially. And I think that the first year, there's a period of time where there's going to be some pain points, and I think it takes a while to adapt to the difference in the finances. But no, it's not all paved with gold, and it just, as always, takes a lot of hard work.
Those financial differences, I think what you're trying to elaborate, we could get to there, is the cost of an apartment, the cost of living, the fact that you're not instantly going to make commission, that you really need to be making commission if you want to be bringing home serious money.
Yeah, absolutely. You could, but you've pretty much hit the nail on the head. The outgoings are a lot more, but the long-term rewards are also a lot more. So it's one of those, you can't expect to come over and be, I think a lot of people in the UK hear about the big paychecks because of the big salaries, but then don't take into account the big costs of the move and the big costs that surround living here. But what I would say is, once you do find the balance, and once you've kind of got up to speed with how it works financially, the opportunities are greater in terms of earnings, but there is a journey to get there.
Yeah, once you're up and running. Now, it's conceivable that a good recruiter there could do over 400 in their second year. That be fair?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
And if they're to do over 400, that means that they should be taking home north of 150. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. It's sometimes hard to get right into that detail with people, but I suppose to break that down, that's just 2 placements a month, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it pretty much is. Depends obviously what market you're doing, and whether you're doing contract or perm or however that works. But yeah, I'd say, for us at Elliott Brown, our average deal size works out to around 27,500. Now, most people fall off their chair in the UK when they hear that, but I would say that's the equivalent of probably a 10 to 15,000 deal in the UK in terms of what it means after, when you do the kind of translation to UK pounds.
And your percentage marks are probably 5 points higher as well.
Yeah, and our typical fees are 20 to 25%. Yeah. And there's a lot of retained business to be won over here as well, which is good. But yeah, it generally works out. People that are doing 2 deals a month are usually generating around 50 kind of K revenue a month. So it's easy to sound like you can make a lot of money, but again, that does require a lot of hard work, and the ramp up time does take a while. But once you get up and running, with these bigger enterprise companies that are going through pretty major digital transformations, doing 2 to 5 deals a month is completely possible.
Talk to me about the stuff that's going on with the leadership of your business right now. You mentioned a performance coach or something along those lines.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give you a kind of bit of insight into Elliott Brown and our group. So we're built up of various brands. Elliott Brown has actually been in New York for 6 years, and we also have 60 people in Dusseldorf as well. We're pretty fortunate. The leadership team here and the business really invests in people outside of just performance at work. But we're fortunate enough to have a guy called JP de Villiers, who's a high performance coach. He did 1,000 burpee challenge, I think, last week. He's trained Olympic athletes. He's been a professional boxer, a professional cyclist. He's a pretty much all-round inspiring guy when it comes to fitness. And what we believe here as a leadership team is that fitness is a non-negotiable when it comes to being the best you can be at work. And we all have the opportunity to work with him. He's actually flying over to New York on the 23rd of this month to spend 3-4 days with the guys, and really help people on their journeys and make sure everyone is getting the most out of their lives inside and outside of work. And with a fit body and a clear mind, work just becomes easier and easier. And that's something I've really I've taken on board from the last kind of 2-3 years.
I was going to say
pretty sediment before.
Yeah, I was going to say you weren't a DJ for the fun for like not the fun of it, hey?
No, exactly. Yeah. So for me, it's an amazing opportunity that everyone gets to have someone like JP coaching them and helping them along their journeys, and it's another part of the mentality of the leadership here.
The drinking culture in recruitment is serious. Like, it's hard to explain to people who are not in the industry.
Yeah, I think it can be, as long as for me, life's all about balance, and I think whether you want to go and enjoy yourself on a Friday or whenever that might be, as long as you're balancing that with some really positive stuff as well.
I'm more on the Liam Gallagher scale of things.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I like extreme training. I'm gonna go out. I like to go out hard.
I'm pretty similar. Probably, I guess I'd probably be described similarly. Yeah, for sure.
So that's a fantastic. It's a fantastic culture that you're growing there, doing that. And I suppose the last question I have is who should reach out to you? How can they get in touch with you? And what have you got going on at the moment?
Sure. So I think across the board, the opportunity for growth within the group is pretty exponential. Across the board, there's some really, really ambitious plans. We're introducing some new technology, which I can't go into too much detail on at the moment, which is basically going to allow us to integrate the brands on a much higher level, and we really want to become, one of the technology-led leaders in the recruitment industry. So from a recruitment point of view, I'm looking for people from entry level right up to senior level here in New York, and also across Europe as well, in Dusseldorf, and also in regards to people who are really interested in just doing business development, and almost on the side of software sales. I'd be interested in speaking to those kind of people as well, and SaaS sales. So if you've been in recruitment a while and you're looking to get into something slightly different and selling a different prospect, when it comes to, but with the experience you have in recruitment, for sure, reach out. If you're looking for an amazing opportunity in New York, in a very mature culture, and in a very modern recruitment company, then please get in touch. I'd love to speak.
And tell me, just in terms of visas, everybody seems to have their own kind of way about this. Is it a couple of years in a degree? How does that look for you when you're looking to sponsor?
Sure. So I think there's a lot of, I have my own thoughts on this. There's a lot of conversation out there with the Trump administration coming into place, and that affecting E2 visas and the treaty visas in the UK. That's just not true. There's definitely some movement. I wrote an article on Tech Beacon around H1B visas and how that's going to affect the growth from skilled migrant workers. But the E2 visa is not going to slow down and not going to stop because of any administration. The things that are essential for that visa is that UK companies employ a reasonable amount of Americans, because that's the point, is that we're investing back in the country. When it comes to education and credentials for getting the visa, as long as you've got a reasonable amount of experience and you've been successful in your job, and if preferable, you've been coaching some people and managing some people, then that is really the necessities. Degrees not necessary, but you need some solid experience and some good success that can be proven if you are looking without a degree.
No, everybody has their. I don't think there's a cut and dry.
There's not no.
answer on it, and I think a lot of people are giving misinformation on it. So anytime anybody's in America, I'd like to get them just to explain that, because it really depends on the company. But that's a fair answer.
Yeah, I think with that, I've kind of spoken to a lot of people about it. I've spoken to various lawyers and solicitors around it, and done my own research. I've got a pretty good understanding of what it takes, but I think the main message that a lot of people are sending these days is that that there's a crackdown on E2s, but I don't think that anything has changed in any legislations in various years. So if that's been said to you and that's spooking you at all, then that shouldn't be a concern.
Sam Harrison, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Talk soon.
Ciao. Bye-bye. Bye.
Well, a massive thank you to Sam for coming on the show and sharing all about his business and life experiences in New York, living in Chelsea, working out in Central Park at the weekend, and having a successful career and a great social life, no doubt. Quite envious of it. Well, I've got 2 kids under 2, so we don't get out much anymore. So yeah, great to get a wee taste of New York, and I think I like his approach, really. I like how they're mixing up how to be socially engaged and trying to adapt the UK model to the American market, and there's not a one size fits all to the recruitment world, and he certainly seems to be embracing that, which is really great. If you're enjoying the show, please give us a review on iTunes, and if you want to come on the show, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you're running a recruitment business, really would love to interview you, or if you are somebody who is in the software business for recruitment businesses, or even if you're a rec to rec, I've got a couple of them coming on, begrudgingly. Or if you're a recruiter who's living around the world, love to have you on. Basically, if you've got an interesting point of view and you're in the agency recruitment world and you want to share your story, then come on, let's have a chat. And excited to get on to the next guest tomorrow. All right, take care. God bless.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.